Imperial Uncle. Chapter 48. Did Feng Heran also become a merchant because merchants are full of deceit and seek naught but profit? Lu Tongyi looks taken aback by my question. Feng Heran was the protagonist of Record of the Qin playing hero of late Sui. It was a creation of the writer Weatherworn. Other tales written by Weatherworn were merely so-so. Qin playing hero is his only good book. In terms of fame as a writer he can't be compared to Bai Yi and the Mad Drunkard, but his Feng Heran has been named one of the three great fictional folk heroes alongside Zhao Yu from Autumnal Hill's Sword of White Jade and the Mad Drunkard's Tan Yizui, from the book Drunken Dreams through 13 Provinces. I admired them very much when I was little. Sternly, I say to Lu Tongyi, you're like me, we both became merchants because we meant to emulate Feng Heran. We likely even got the idea for the names Zhao Chai and Mei Yong from the pseudonym Feng Heran took on later Qian Lai. When you put yourself down like this, aren't you also dragging both the folk hero Feng and me into the mud with you? Eyes wide, Lu Tongyi stares blankly at me. In contrast to the unperturbed look he usually keeps up, he's far cuter now. Merchant Mei, since you find it disagreeable to hear me calling you by your courtesy name, I'll call you that instead. I don't want to beat around the bush anymore. Aside from self-criticism and self-admonishment, your narration probably had another layer of meaning. That is, you don't want to go back to court and become a functionary again. Lu Tongyi looks startled once more. The other layer of meaning is that you want to convey you don't need me to owe you a favor for saving me back then. Aside from the assassination attempt, I was able to guess most of what he just told me when these things actually happened. I had vague suspicions even with Chu Sun. He's pieced it all together for me by telling me so much, and this is after I already met with His Majesty. Of course I'd be able to grasp the crux of it all. I smile, wryly, and heave a humorously exaggerated sigh. After all that's said and done, whether we're Prince Huai and Chancellor Lu or the merchants Zhao and Mei, there will never come a day where I call you Ranzi and you call me Chenjun. Lu Tongyi moves rapidly from one expression to another, in the end settling for a wry smile as well. Your Highness, you really are something else. I then proceed to assure him some more. Prince Huai Jingwei is already dead. What's past is past. A small-time peddler like myself is nowhere near qualified enough to lobby on the imperial court's behalf. You may rest easy, Merchant Mei. We're about to arrive at the wharf where we'll be stopping for the evening. A gentle breeze flutters in through half-closed windows. I stare out at the sunset on the river, and recall the 2 lines Lu Tongyi once gifted me. Prince Yang's heart already rests in Mount Wu, what need has he then, to sleep talk of Jiangnan in his dreams? The ship slowly closes in on the shore, where figures jostle one another in another scene of prosperity. A fishing boat steers tightly past us, the net in the fisherman's hands filled with crab. Ah, that's right, another month and the Mid-Autumn Festival will be upon us. The crabs are starting to grow fat. Lu Tongyi rises. We're here. I'm going to look in on His Majesty and make appropriate arrangements. Feeling suddenly sentimental, I ask Lu Tongyi without any rhyme or reason, why haven't you settled down and gotten married? Lu Tongyi looks surprised by my question, but then he gives me a quick smile. I've gotten used to being alone. I try to persuade him, if there isn't anyone you just can't forget, then make sure you find someone soon. You don't think much about it now, but once you're past 30, whenever New Year's and the festival days roll around, and you realize you don't even have anyone to eat mooncake and have reunion dinners with, then you'll start getting nervous. Someone as distinguished as yourself will certainly be able to find someone talented and beautiful who's tender and virtuous to boot if you'd only look. Lu Tongyi favors me with a smile. Sure. I'll go looking for one in the future. Chasing the sunset glow stealing through the windows he glances at me, then he sighs. Actually, I don't get it. I originally came to speak of the past with you, Merchant Zhao, so how did we end up on this topic? What can be accomplished by talking about what happened 3 years ago over and over again? One is better off making the best of the present. With my hands clasped behind my back, I look out the window. Doesn't seeing the sunset ever make you think of poetry? Lu Tongyi also puts on a serious face. All I can think of right now is what I'm going to do about His Majesty's dinner tonight. Once the ship is docked, His Majesty has no plans to take the land route back to the capital. He says the view is great from the river and the local customs are rustic. He wants to take a stroll. I cannot help but feel sorry for Wang Yu, Deng Qin, and those bodyguards. His Majesty imperially appoints Lu Tongyi as his strolling companion. I stay on the ship to have a sumptuous dinner alone. Wang Qinchen's large ship next to us is once more illuminated brilliantly, wave after wave of music and the sound of merrymaking percolate through the hull. His Majesty returns past sunset, after having dinner in the town. Lu Tongyi barely has the time to greet me before he has to go arrange His Majesty's bath. Then he just manages to get some tea and take a short break before His Majesty finishes with his bath and summons Lu Tongyi to his room for a chat. I stroll onto the bow for some fresh breeze. Next door, Wang Qinchen's ship is still festooned with bright and ornate lanterns, still extraordinarily lively. A few small boats are anchored quietly nearby. Deng Qin and the bodyguards are probably inside them. The moon is bright, the stars are sparse, all seems peaceful. I recall one mid-autumn festival some time after my mother had already passed away, and Princess Consort Huai told me she wanted to celebrate with her parents. I permitted it. As it grew darker, I stood beneath the gallery and watched the sky, thinking what a great round moon that is, but I'm the only one here in the garden to drink and to appreciate it. In that moment I really did think myself unbearably lonesome. Right then, someone came by to let me know that Lord Yun had arrived. Led in by a servant, he smiled at me from afar. "How come your highness is standing around all by yourself on the Mid-Autumn Festival?" It may have been at that very moment that I realized everyone needed a mate. Truth is, I too want someone like that at my side. His heart would long for me alone, and my heart would only long for him, enduring, slow, steady, just being together. Have our meals together, share a bed together, spend the festival days together. But it is both simple, and not so simple, to reach that rung in life. It all depends on what's written in one's stars. I go back inside the cabin. Lu Tongyi isn't finished keeping His Majesty company yet, so I return to my room and go to sleep. I dream a dream. I dream that I've gotten old, a beard drapes over my chest, and I can't straighten my back. I'm standing with a cane out in one of the courtyards of the Prince Huai estate, looking around myself blankly. I keep feeling like I've forgotten something, but can't recall anything at all. Suddenly an old woman in formal clothing with a golden pin in her graying hair is standing before me, staring at me bitterly. Jingwei, I never imagined that I would end up spending my entire life with you just like that. Do you think we've managed to get to till death do us part? I consider her carefully, and conclude that she may be Princess Consort Huai. She laughs a mournful laugh, and her appearance gradually grows younger until she grows back into her old appearance. While glaring at me, she says, enunciating every word, "Jingwei, though my body was monopolized by you my entire life, you'd never, ever possess my heart." All my hair seems to stand on end. Then in my bewilderment I recall that I seem to have never monopolized Princess Huai's body at all. I want to tell her that, but nothing comes out. Both Princess Huai and the scene in front of my eyes start to blur, and someone is calling out, "Your Highness, Your Highness." With a start, I open my eyes to find myself lying on a bed. The sound of crying is next to my ear. I turn my head, someone is sitting before the bed, drying her tears and looking at me. To my surprise, it's still Princess Huai. A cadre of servants behind her are wiping their tears too. Princess Huai says to me, sobbing, "Your Highness, you're finally awake, whatever you want to say, whatever unfinished business you still have on your mind, please say it," and she cries some more. I open my mouth, and once again I can't make a single sound. My body feels heavy all over, neither my arms nor my legs feel like they belong to me. I can't move at all. My hand is resting outside of the blankets, and Princess Hawaii grabs it now. She hesitates before saying, "Your Highness, there's something that this consort must tell you. I've let you down, even though we've spent so many years together. I never loved you. Before marrying you my heart was already set on someone else. I'm sorry, I've tried, but I couldn't forget him. My heart was the only thing that I couldn't give you." With a shiver I'm startled awake. I climb to my feet. Sweat has soaked through my nightgown. This time, I really am awake. I pour 2 gulps of cold tea down my throat, and throw an outer garment on before stepping outside the cabin. The cool and refreshing night breeze slowly dries out my sweat-soaked clothes. It's all right. It's all right. It was just a dream. Anything like that can only ever happen in a dream. Nowadays, no one will grow old with me. Rather disappointed, I heave a sigh. Someone asks me from afar, "Is the person standing at the bow over there Merchant Zhao?" I turn to look, and find someone standing on the deck of Wang Qinshan's ship's bow. Beneath a lantern, he wraps one fist in a hand and raises them in greeting at me. "If you can't sleep, why not come over onto my ship and we can share some drinks? There's wine in my cabin as well. Would you be willing to come over?" Wang Qianshan replies, "That's all right too." He turns, and claps his hands together. At once, his servants go to get a boat ready. Soon after, he floats over leisurely on a small boat, steps onto the deck, and comes into the cabin with me. I fan the lamp back to life. He sits down by the table. I pick up a jug and fill the cup in front of him. He takes one look and furrows his brow. This seems to be tea. I sit down across from him. Tea isn't anything like wine. And neither do you resemble your brother, Lord Yun. End chapter. Imperial Uncle. Chapter 49. The man sitting across from me laughs heartily, and he peels something as thin as a cicada's wing off his face, at last revealing Yun Yu's features. There is some bruising and swelling over his left cheek, and the skin is broken at the corner of his lip. He looks to be in a bit of a state. Taken by surprise, I stammer, "What?" Yun Yu lightly touches the injury on his face. "Oh, this. My brother hit me." "Why did he hit you?" Yun Yu attempts a smile. "The first reason is familial. He bears a grudge against our father, but he couldn't stomach what I did. Secondly, with the way I've come all the way here like this, he couldn't help himself from calling me a lapdog and to make certain inferences about my backbone." He tosses the mask onto the table. "Then I said to him, 'Since you've already hit me, you should at least let me ride on your ship.'" I glance at his mask. "Here I was wondering what you're doing going about with an illicit item such as this. So it's actually your brother's." Yun Yu laughs. Ultimately I can't stand to look at the injury on his face any longer, and go to rummage around in my luggage. I take out a box of ointment. "This works well to reduce swelling and bruising. Just put it on after you wash your face." Yun Yu takes the ointment from me with thanks. I meet his eyes through the dim light, and finally can't help asking him, "Weren't you managing the flooding in Chengzhou? Why is he suddenly here? Why did he stand at the ship's bow in the middle of the night? Why did he speak to me? Why did he invite me to drink with him?" Candle flames flicker in Yun Yu's eyes, and for a moment it makes it hard for me to tell what he's feeling. It's a little while before he answers. "I received Zhang Bing's message while I was in Chengzhou. He feared that Deng Tan and the others may not be enough to rely upon, and so I left the business of flood management to Prince Dai and rushed here overnight." "I see. His Majesty has already gone to sleep." "He went to the markets in the evening with Lu Tongyi and the guards. Nothing out of the ordinary happened." Yun Yu nods. "I know. I arrived at sundown. Seems His Majesty still wants Lu Tongyi to come back to the court. This is Lu Tongyi's personal business and an inappropriate subject for me to discuss, so I obliquely change the subject. It's the middle of the night and you're still awake. Do you have to stand guard through the night like one of the bodyguards? Yun Yu yawns. Correct. We're stopped at a wharf and it's night time, so one must be extra careful. Once day comes and we're on our way again, we can relax a little. I was focused on keeping watch when I happened to see you standing there at the bow, Merchant Zhao, that's why I came over. True. Two staying up all night talking is more comfortable than one staying awake alone. But dressing up as your brother is rather redundant. In both physique and voice you and your brother differ too much, even I was able to tell right away, let alone His Majesty. Yun Yu laughs. That's true. And he tucks the mask inside his robes. We drink tea and chat until dawn. He tells me some interesting things that happened over the past years at court, and I tell him some of what I've seen on my travels over the years. As the sky is just brightening, Yun Yu makes noises about going, and I bid him stay. Why don't you go after breakfast and go see His Majesty directly from here? He may get word that you've arrived as soon as he wakes. You already boarded the ship, so not taking the initiative to see him may be improper. Sure, he replies, and so I end up keeping him a while longer. Once the sun has fully risen and I figure Kijhi is probably awake, I'm just about to go check when there's gentle knocking at the door. Merchant Zhao, are you up? It's the voice of one of the servants aboard the ship. I reply in the affirmative. Some time passes, then there's knocking at the door again. I open the door, two workers carry in a filled bathtub, the water ever so slightly steaming. I'm briefly astonished, and my face twitches once, in spite of myself. The two workers lower their heads and leave the room as soon as they set the bathtub down inside the room. I call them to stop. I've always bathed at night before. Why have you brought me water this morning? One of them tells me with his head still bowed, it was the general manager who tasked us to get it ready. Yun Yu bursts into a full belly laugh. I stand next to the bathtub. It feels wrong to ask them to take it away, but keeping it doesn't feel right either. They already brought the water. It'd be a waste to tell them to take it back. Just take another bath. I'm going to see my superior. Yun Yu rises, and leaves with an unhurried ease. I have no choice then but to bathe again. I am a little sleepy from staying up all night. After a bath, I feel much refreshed. Just before leaving, I carelessly bash my leg against the table's leg quite badly, so as I step outside the room, I have a bit of a limp to my gait. Lu Tongyi is the only person in the ship's sitting room, having some tea. I look around and find neither Yun Yu nor Kijhi. Lu Tongyi tells me, your nephew and the younger Sir Wan have gone to the Wan merchant ship together. He calls for breakfast. Both the breakfast congee and the side dishes are all lightly seasoned. I ask for a dish of hot sauce to dip my shumai in, and for a second Lu Tongyi's chopsticks hover in midair. The galley forgot to make any. He picks up a shred of jula and bamboo shoot and places it into the congee bowl. When breakfast is done, my leg still hurts a little. I had given my medicinal ointment to Yun Yu last evening, so I have no choice but to ask Lu Tongyi. Merchant May, do you have any medicinal ointment or a tincture for bruises and such? Lu Tongyi gives me a complicated look. He says calmly, yes. I'll have it brought to you. Soon afterwards, a servant brings the ointment. Lu Tongyi takes it from him and checks it first. Why did you bring this one? Get Salvation Hall's effective and pure ointment and have it delivered to Merchant Zhao's room. I look at the bottle and it clearly says it's a rubbing ointment manufactured by the Academy of Internal Medicine, and I know it to be quite effective, and so I interject, this is fine. Lu Tongyi gives me yet another complicated look. There's peppermint in that ointment. Let's get you something more gentle. I realize what's going on all of a sudden, and my face twitches again. I simply part the bottom of my robes then and pull up a trouser leg. I just bumped my leg against something, that's all. Mint would be just the thing. Lu Tongyi looks at me again, just as complicated, but he doesn't say anything more. And so the servant hands me the bottle. The morning is blisteringly hot. I return to my cabin to get a fan, and as soon as I head inside, I spot a box of ointment on the table with the word Salvation Hall carved on the lid right there. I can't stand this anymore. Sweeping the box up into my robes, I go looking for Lu Tongyi. I find Lu Tongyi reading in his room, a tight furrow between his brows and looking very grave. I close the door behind me and tell him solemnly, "Merchant Mei, Lord Yun and I spent the night doing nothing but drink tea. And talk. And besides, even though it's a bit embarrassing to say what I'm going to say out loud, I have no choice but to say it defiantly, Jingwei, from the very first occasion, have never laid beneath anyone." Lu Tongyi sets down the book he was reading, seemingly at a loss for words. A touch of pink rises in his cheeks and up his neck. This is the very first time I've ever seen him looking like he has no idea what to say. I find it rather fascinating. I walk closer to him, sit down by his table, and pour myself a cup of tea. There was never love between Yunyu and I. And later, there was probably some guilt. I'll be leaving for Java in a few days. Perhaps some attachments have never existed, and perhaps they have already been severed. They won't ever grow again. Saying these words out in the open tastes bitter and makes my heart ache. Actually, it was only last night that I cleared my mind of some of these distractions. I once thought wishfully that Yunyu may have harbored some other feelings toward me. We used to drink and go out to have fun together. There should have been some affection between us at least. That night in Chengzhou had given my heart enough life to stir a smidgen. It wasn't until last night though, that I fully understood. The truth is that Yunyu never loved me. I should have known since that day at the Moonlight Pavilion. Yunyu was drowning his sorrows that day, but when I was holding him, he was petrified from head to toe. I could feel his hair standing on end under my palms, the shudders he could not contain and the goosebumps he could not suppress. We all want to believe our own lies, but no matter how much I want to deceive myself, there will always be a threshold that even I myself cannot step over. That's why, even if I manage to weave a lie that I can believe in, I cannot turn it into the truth. Lu Tongyi has finally regained his usual attitude, and he picks up his book again. I shouldn't speak about other people's private business, but from what I understand, Lord Yun and His Majesty don't actually have what some may conjecture to exist between them. End chapter. Imperial Uncle. Chapter 50. When he tells me this out of the blue, it catches me unawares. I freeze and something tugs in my chest. "Oh," I reply. Lu Tongyi is still holding that book. Lord Yun was in Chengzhou on flood management duty on imperial orders. Even if he learned that the emperor is right here, it ought to have been Prince Dai who came instead. If His Majesty wanted to see Lord Yun, or if Lord Yun wished to meet with His Majesty for any reason, he could have waited until they both returned to the capital. He trails off, turns his attention back to the book, and doesn't continue his narration. I make a noise to indicate I heard him. Lu Tongyi keeps holding that book. He stares at the book. I stare at him to see when he's going to look back at me. Lu Tongyi can really hold out. I wait for quite a long time, but he stubbornly keeps his gaze glued to the book. He even turns a page. I attempt to strike up a conversation. "What is this book that has you so entranced?" And I lean forward to get a look. "The almanac." "Merchant Mei, do you need to pick an auspicious opening day for a new store or something?" Lu Tongyi changes rapidly between expressions. It all happens in the blink of an eye, but I notice it anyway. Perfectly composed, he closes the almanac. There was something else that I had to check the date for. I laugh. What you said earlier to ease my mind was very much like something the Court of Judicial Review would come up with. And here I thought those who had a post at the court didn't pay much attention to such things as what's auspicious according to the stars. The only one who didn't pay attention to those things was Zhang Bing. I turned the teacup over and over in my hand. I very much agree with what you said earlier, Merchant Mei. I wonder if you have other insights that you can share with me. Lu Tongyi remains composed and continues to speak. There's also, it's not like Lord Yun to not go see His Majesty right away once he arrived. Locking eyes with him like this, all kinds of emotions crash over me like a wave. I've thought of everything that Lu Tongyi is telling me already. And yet, something flickers across my mind. I promptly ask him, that reminds me. You know the mask for disguise that they talk about in novels all the time? Have you ever seen the real thing? Lu Tongyi nods. Yes. There were a few cases that involved those so-called underworld figures. A few are still being kept at the Court of Judicial Review. I proceed to ask Lu Tongyi how long it takes to make a single mask. Lu Tongyi ponders this for a bit. Back then, I once made a point of finding out how. Making a mask is a lot of work. Even the most proficient expert in the craft needs anywhere from 12 to 14 hours to complete one. Is it possible to start the work at dusk and finish by midnight? Lu Tongyi shakes his head. Impossible. You first have to make a mold, reverse it, then make the mask using the reverse mold. Some artisans use human skin, but most use a special kind of resin. And then it has to be air-dried before further detailing can be done. There's no way it can be finished within 4 to 6 hours. I'm on my feet at once. Ran, Merchant Mei, can you do me another favor? Approach Wang Qinshan's merchant ship. I need to board that ship. It's an emergency. As quickly as possible. Lu Tongyi gets up also. His gaze pauses over my face for a beat. Will do. Wang Qinshan's merchant ship is ahead of Lu Tongyi's, and in between us there are also small boats for the Emperor's personal bodyguards. As Lu Tongyi's ship approaches Merchant Wan's at breakneck speed, for a second His Majesty's guards think assassins have boarded our ship in an attempt to kill Kijhe, and nearly attack us. Then Deng Tan takes some of his people and searches up and down the ship, making sure nothing untoward has happened before letting us continue to close in. Before us, Wang Qinshan's ship also stops by the shore for the time being. Seeing that their ship's willing to stop, I breathe a sigh of relief. And under Deng Tan and the guard's escort I hop onto Wang Qinshan's ship. Someone who looks like a steward comes out to greet us. I grab hold of him right away. Where's Merchant Wan's younger brother? The steward takes forever to get his words out. Are you talking about young Master Daoshui? Him and the master are inside with the young man who came over this morning. Did you come to see that young man? Deng Tan mutters next to me, you ought to announce yourself, over and over and over. I just pretend I don't hear him at all. No, I came to see your master's younger brother, young Master Wan Daoshui. As I speak these words, I step right into the cabin. Deng Tan and the guards trail behind me closely. You ought to announce yourself, muttering on and on. I spot a young servant I saw on the deck earlier running off like a shot, and I follow him until I come to a door. He's halfway through the door when I get there, so I simply push it open. Inside, Kijhe, Yunyu, and Wan Qianshan are sitting down, and a troupe of female dancers are all standing there, frozen in place. Kijhe raises a brow, and Wan Qianshan rises with a smile, but before either starts speaking, I take long strides inside and grab Yunyu by the arm. Yunyu was still sitting and stands up. He stares right into my eyes and asks, what is it? I'm looking for you, of course. The corner of Yunyu's mouth turns up. Oh? What could possibly have made you come all the way? I lean in close and whisper by his ear, come outside with me. This isn't a good place to talk. And holding onto him I start moving. Yunyu seems immobilized in place for a second, then he lets me drag him out of the room, out of the cabin, and once we arrive on the deck he finally stops. If we keep walking we're going to end up in the river. Where on earth are you taking me? Let's you and I jump in then. Yunyu's expression goes blank before he smiles. That's no good. I can't really swim. Drowning would be quite unpleasant. Actually, I can't swim either. I just want to find out which of us is going to open his mouth first and speak truth before we drown. Yunyu looks at me again. Once we open our mouths water is going to rush right in. Can we still speak then? Even if you just say it in your heart I'll still be able to hear it. Yunyu smiles some more. You must have learned an unorthodox trick like that from one of those adventure novels, Merchant Zhao. I have never seen anything like that, so I can't do it. We have a soundproof room here. Even Lu Tongyi's ship may not be as reliable as that. Why don't we go talk there? That's fine. In consideration for His Majesty's safety with myself on board, Deng Tan and the guards move Kichi onto Lu Tongyi's ship. After Kichi's departure, our fleet moves slowly on our way. Yunyu takes me to a cabin with hollowed-out walls on each side. It's a good place to talk. Wine or tea? He asks. I give this some thought. Wine. Yunyu gives me a smile, and calls someone to bring us a bottle of first-rate Shaoxing. He bars the door. The wine's aroma fills the cabin. Yunyu finishes pouring and asks me, you can probably tell me now, right? What business do you have with me, Merchant Zhao? I came to see you to tell you just one thing. I love you, Suiya. Yunyu's hand, holding a cup, pauses in midair. He sets the cup down and fixates his gaze on me. I've been to a lot of places, and seen a lot of people over the past few years. I thought I'd forgotten the past, but I can't forget. I can lie to anyone but myself. I thought you were just lying to me back then, but why did you come to my place when you were in Chengzhou? And why did you appear last night? It's lamentable, how short life is. Who knows if reincarnation actually exists? This life may be all we have. I can't deceive myself any longer. That's why. Wearing an inscrutable expression, Yunyu interjects, that's why you told Lu Tongyi to chase down this ship, so you can board it and tell me that you want to jump into the river with me, and to tell me what you just told me. I grab hold of his wrist. Suiya. Yunyu stares at me, the corner of his mouth quirks a touch. I don't believe you. My brows furrow. Why not? Are you only going to believe me if I dig out my heart? He sneers at that. Such sweet talk that even peasants find cliched. That's quite an amusing joke you're making there, Your Highness. I look at him, frowning. Then I simply drag him up towards me and press my lips to his. Yunyu tenses in my embrace yet again. I ignore it, urging him to open up to me with my tongue, and soon he begins to respond to me, gradually relaxing a smidgen. I let him go, take a deep breath, and ask him softly, now do you believe me? Yunyu's expression remains unfathomable. He spits out these words, I don't believe you. Why? He says slowly, why did you give me that pill? My heart sinks. Once, at the cusp of the rebellion, Yunyu came to have a long talk with me. He said he had no idea whether we could manage to succeed in our plan. If we failed and were caught, we'd surely suffer every possible torture one could experience in the mortal world. We'd best be prepared. I felt a rush of panic, and asked if he was prepared. He told me of course he was, and even took out a medicine bottle to show me. Inside the bottle was some seriously strong poison. I watched as he dropped a drop onto the stone table, and as soon as it hit the surface it began to sizzle and bubble. I said to him at once that his poison wasn't any good, it was too painful to drink. I pulled him into my bedroom and took out 2 pills from a hidden compartment. I said, I had these made to order from a secret formula, and death is guaranteed the moment it's taken. It's also quick and painless, the best thing for this purpose. So I threw his medicine bottle away, and found a bottle to put one of the pills inside, and gave it to him just in case. Yun Yu solemnly accepted it. Yun Yu stares at me coldly. It did indeed take effect as soon as it was taken. So quick. So effective. I had the run so bad I didn't leave the toilet for a full day and night. My hands are breaking out in a cold sweat. Why did you take it? Expressionlessly, Yun Yu says to me, I never wanted to owe anyone a debt. I was the one who lured you into this con, so by rights I should compensate you with my life. Just that. I thought you meant I wasn't even fit to pay with my life. He sneers. At the time, I thought, there's really no need for you to do that. A loyal subject such as your highness will certainly be posthumously deified, while someone like myself is sure to go to hell once I die. Even if souls remain after death, the two of us would never meet. I suddenly find myself at a loss. Yun Yu, what kind of a person are you, really? What can I ever do to truly understand you? Yun Yu glances at me and his expression goes through another change, but this time it's to start laughing, a hopeless, helpless laugh. And then I found that note. Thank you for enlightening me. To begin with, I was afraid that while on the hunt for Yun Yu, he may try to kill himself before we managed to find him, so I did a bit of something to the bottle. There's a note from me in between the outer and inner layer. What passes through the bowels passes through the mind, this too shall pass. Yun Yu sighs. I couldn't figure it out. Why would someone who'd do a thing like that commit suicide? It was only after 3 years had passed and someone spotted you in one of Lu Tongyi's businesses, reporting it to the Imperial Court, that I realize you really were faking your death. I had everything planned, yet somehow the unexpected kept happening. My mind is a mess. I gaze into his eyes. Yun Yu, I say to him. I no longer know who I am. Prince Huai, Jingwei. No. Zhao Chai. I'm not that either. I ask him softly, Suiya, can you call me Chinjun just once? End chapter. Imperial Uncle. Chapter 51. Yun Yu smiles a little. Well, I've always wanted to call you that, but it's not like I'm Jing Kijhe. If I call you that, I fear I may be mixing up family hierarchy, Imperial Uncle. As I listen to these words, the world seems to drop away from around me. It's true. Obviously, just like Kijhe and Kitten, he should be calling me Uncle. Imperial Uncle, you said a lot of things to me today, they're all heartfelt words between Jingwei and Yun Yu. But this play will have to end here. That's because I know you came here and said those things to me for Jing Kijhe's sake. When you're calling Yun Yu, you also already know who I am. He's right. I know who he is, but I keep lying to myself, telling myself that maybe I guessed wrong. It's impossible. He simply is Yun Yu. Yun Yu looks right at me. How did you ever find out? I can hear my own voice speaking slowly. When Yun Tang was plotting the rebellion, there was one thing I couldn't figure out. He was a mere civil functionary, he's never taken control of any military forces. Even if he managed to succeed, how was he going to make everyone recognize him as the rightful ruler? In Chengzhou, after I saw Yun Yu, there were also some things that didn't make sense to me. Yun Yu was hardly the type to do things haphazardly, but in Chengzhou, he allowed Lu Tongyi and I to depart. After that, we met Yunzhe, then later when I saw Yun Yu on the Wan ship, it made me feel rather puzzled. Yun Yu said he was here for Kijhe's sake. But if Kijhe wanted to go on a trip, he must have had everything arranged. Even though I don't know Zhongbing all that well, I think he wouldn't go so far as to tell an official of the Ministry of Works to rush here to protect the Emperor, and during a flood management mission no less. And besides, Kitten was in Chengzhou too. He certainly didn't come over here for myself and Lu Tongyi. So all that's left is Kijhe. That night, Yunyu came to meet me disguised as Yunzhe. Lu Tongyi told me that it took a lot of time to make a single mask. So the mask Yunyu used to disguise himself as Yunzhe wasn't made at the last minute. So that leaves us with a number of possibilities. 1. Yunyu often dresses up as Yunzhe to move around among the society types. 2. Yunzhe runs a big business, and some of it may not be all on the up and up, so for safety's sake he'll sometimes have his trusted aides disguise themselves as him, and that's why he has a thing like that. Yunyu never did anything extraneous. For example, that day when he made Lu Tongyi and Chu Sun play a duet, he was actually trying to tell me that the two knew each other. Yunzhe punched Yunyu, which means he hadn't disavowed all relations between himself and the father and son Yuntang and Yunyu. When Yunzhe broke off ties with his father, Yuntang hadn't become a top-rank official yet, he hadn't reached the point where he could have considered turning against the emperor. But by then he had already sent his eldest son away. That any sentimentality remains between them is an odder thing still. This makes me recall something Zhang Xiao said to me while I was late recuperating in Celery Lane after I faked my death and escaped the palace. Princess Consort Huai was worried that this day would come. That's because even if your highness hasn't accomplished as much as the former Prince Huai, your estate knows far too many secrets. It turns out that other than military service, my father once involved himself in a case concerning the imperial bloodline. Zhang Xiao and Steward So only had a vague idea of this affair. Emperor Tongguang once had a fleeting romance with a commoner. Empress Lu had just passed away from illness then, and Emperor Tongguang could not bear the loneliness, and on one spring walk outside the palace they met and a passionate affair was wrought, but that woman actually ended up with child, and bore him a son. Emperor Tongguang didn't recognize this woman and their son and bring them into the palace. I'm not sure precisely why, but it was a wise decision. With a lowly upbringing, the child's mother had no family she could rely on. She was better off living out in the world than inside the palace. My dad used to look after her and her son on the sly. Later on, Emperor Tongguang passed away and the former emperor succeeded to the throne. In the middle of attending to all that, a flood happened in that woman's home province and since then there has been no news from her. My dad once told me that grandfather and grandmother met beneath begonias, and that's why his name is Tang. Yunyu smiles. Honestly, my brother has no intention of harming His Majesty, but at the very least, His Majesty is his cousin. He just wanted to spend some time with him. You worry too much, Imperial Uncle. I'd truly rather die than to hear him call me that, yet he chooses to keep saying it. Imperial Uncle, I'm actually just like Jingkichi and Jingkitten. I have an unbearable headache, as though my head's been cracked open. I'm close to being at the point of cutting off my ear with a knife. Yunyu keeps looking at me with that smile on his face. Imperial Uncle, if my brother and I really did want to do something to the Emperor, what would you do to us? What would you do to me? I grip the edge of the table and rise from my seat. Such an if does not exist. That's because nothing happened. His Majesty simply took a turn on the wand ship. Other than that, there was nothing else. Nothing happened at all. Right. Nothing at all. From the very beginning, there was never anything at all. Nothing ever happened is the only choice we have. Then what was what we had? What should I think of it? Even Yunyu isn't real. Then what's real? I ask myself. And I ask Yunyu. Yunyu seems to try to smile, his voice is serene. The only thing that's real is that I'm your nephew, Imperial Uncle. At nightfall, the ship docks at a town called Linqiao. Another day on the river and we'll be in Suzhou. Stepping off the wand ship, and before I even have a chance to go back onto Lu Tongyi's, I notice 5 people dressed in the short tunics with square collars of servants coming onto the dock heading to Lu Tongyi's ship. One whispers to a guard and shows him a flash of something from his sleeve, and the guard immediately lets them onto the ship. As I stand there watching them, someone beside me starts to speak. "Master, are you not going to board the ship?" I turn to find Deng Tan next to me. I wonder when he started following me, to suddenly appear like that. I am. Are those people from home? As he boards the ship with me, Deng Tan tells me, yes they are. The young master's been out too long, so it's about time his family starts getting nervous. Lady Zhao was probably the one who sent them to hurry him home. I head inside, and the only one standing inside the cabin sitting room is Wang Yu. He bows to me. "Master, you came at just the right time. Please come have a talk in young master's room." I follow him to Kichi's door. The servants I saw earlier are coming out just as I get there. Kichi's voice comes around the half-open door. "Uncle, are you outside?" He's saying that to mean there's no need to announce my presence, so I push the door open and head inside. Wang Yu closes the door behind me. Kichi is sitting next to the table, he sets down his teacup. When I bend my knee to kneel, he interrupts, "You may dispense with the formalities." I thank His Majesty for his favor. Kichi points at the chair to the side. "Sit." I hesitate a little before sitting down. "Imperial Uncle, how come you're more careful now that this time has come? The closer one gets to the end, the more cautious one ought to be." Kichi looks down, and says nothing. It is a moment before he speaks again. "We are heading back to the capital tonight. Your Majesty should be returning to the capital soon. For one, it's hard to make any major decisions at court when the Emperor is not present, and for two, it would be ill-advised for your precious self to spend too long in the outside world." "What precious self? If we didn't manage to become the Emperor, we would be a prince just like Kitten. Maybe we would go dig up antiques all over and spend my time appreciating curios in my estate too." I tell him sincerely, "Your Majesty could never be as bad with money as Prince Dai." Kichi raises a brow at me. He laughs. "That's true, we suppose." He restrains the laugh until it's a silk-thin line by his mouth, and his gaze falls squarely into my eyes. "Imperial Uncle, you don't hate us. The position one is in decides what one must do. This subject understand?" Kichi looks down again. "As long as you understand. Well then we will have Wang Yu stay with you." Kichi has never been one to let anything slip by him. I reply, "As your Majesty commands." Kichi looks up at me again. "That sounds like you harbor some resentment. It would be impossible for you to not resent us at all. If there's anything else you want, you can ask us. This subject have already done what he have always wanted to do. There's nothing else." The mirth at Kichi's mouth surfaces again. "Imperial Uncle, you really are blunt. We really are worried that you won't come back to the court with us anymore. Lord Yun is your Majesty's subject. How can he ever simply not go back to court?" After asking to be excused, I turn to leave the room. Kichi sudden says, "Imperial Uncle." I look back to find him standing, giving me a glance before turning his back to me again. "Please go ahead, Imperial Uncle." End chapter.